Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the final chat of ApocTober. We are going to be discussing this time the Apocalypse Fantastica. And it is going to be about magical apocalypse mainly. But we're going to mix in different things and points from our other discussions, as usual. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and do announcements and any kind of shout-out that we want to do for Levi's shout-out spotlight. So, I'll go first like usual, and then we will do, we will do Okayest DM, Skrat, and then Avenue Studios before we do Levi's spotlight. So, I am Adam L. Spain with the End of Planar Crossroads. If you want to support us or find us and track us down on the different social medias, then you can do so by going to our landing page, TheIoPC.com or endofplanarcrossroads.com. Either one of those URLs should work, and that will take you to where you can do that said thing. We're trying to get to $100 per month of support for our channel so that I can possibly get some metal dice made to give as a bonus to those, as a thank you to those people who support. And I probably have to order a bulk order, so that means that with the few subscribers, the few patrons and stuff like that we would have, they might get guaranteed to get some dice. I don't know. It depends on how big the order has to be. So, there you go. Just imagine it. Little dice, metal dice, got the glyph of the TTRPG on it. I'll tell you. Anyway, that's what we've got going. We hope you've been enjoying the live streams that we've started up doing on Mondays, usually, for our house specials, where we are developing a different little adventure path for the kids to go through in homeschool. And that's what we're doing right now. I think that's what I've got. So, let's do Okayest DM.
Hi, I'm Dennis. I run the Okayest DM YouTube channel where I make mistakes playing games and running games, so you don't have to. Mostly I run them, but that's a different story. Most of what I've been doing on the channel recently is live playtests of my upcoming system, Saga's setting and genre agnostic system. It is a new rules light TTRPG that I've been developing, and it is free. The playtest for the version 0.7 is available for free on DriveThruRPG. Even in its final iteration, this is going to be a pay-what-you-want game. I'm not putting it behind a paywall. I want this to be as accessible as possible. And I have a challenge for you. If you do go pick it up, I dare you to try to find a setting and or genre that it doesn't work with. Because we've been trying, and we have yet to find one. So, that is a challenge for you. If you do it, let me know. If not, that's okay too. But you can find me on all the socials at Okayest__DM.
Okie dokie. What you got, Skrat?
I am Skrat from Squirrel Plays, also on the YouTube, except I don't make mistakes. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't make any.
Squirrels never do.
No,
a squirrel arrives precisely when he means to.
That's right. That's right. Let's see. I chat about world building, character building, and those kind of things. As far as making your stories fun and enjoyable, and like trying to make them be a little more solid, it is. Even though I lean towards TTRPGs, that's definitely not just for those. It's for whatever your preferred storytelling platform is. But I also do like to dabble in lesser-known TTRPGs and try and give them a spotlight when I can. I think Adventurous was one that I did recently. It just dropped a few months ago, so that got a review. That was fun. But that's all I got, man.
Alright. That means we're to Avenue Studios.
Here we are. Dan and Zechariah from Avenue Studios. Of course, we'll shout out Great Moustache. He had to head out for the night, but check out openlegendrpg.com, and on the Open Legend RPG store, you can use the code Bomb Squad from our main campaign, the start of our channel, to get 10% off everything in the store. So check that out. Their core rulebook is online, fully free, and it's another setting agnostic system, so check that out. Of course, for the themed collaboration, the themed month collaboration within Planar Crossroads, second and fourth Thursday of every month, we live stream 7 p.m. Eastern. We build and then playtest a one-shot based off the conversations we have here and around the Hearth, and our supporters get to join in through a raffle to play live with us on that. And then, of course, Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern for our live After Quest campaign, currently in Nobles, 5th edition, Dungeons & Dragons, and Bomb Squad's on Fridays. Check out our shorts. We're on YouTube, Rumble, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Magic Apocalypse.
Oh, well, before we do that...
I was
Levi's
getting
spotlight.
excited.
Shout out a gelatinous
Speaking-
cube.
I was going to say, speaking
gained a
of
brain.
Magic Apocalypse, gelatinous cubes.
Honestly, gelatinous cubes becoming sentient, woo, you can tell it's late for me, becoming sentient, and becoming cowboys who herd humans as cattle.
That's actually
It's
really
a
good.
strange, but very interesting dystopia/apocalypse point.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to see the gelatinous Rube, it's more talking about TTRPGs. The series, well, that I have been shouting out each time has been specifically on the Grand Campaign, where time flows in-game and out-of-game pretty well one-to-one, and you have way too many players, and you schedule a ton and play a ton, and how to actually make that work.
Alright. Very Westmarchy. Okay.
Yes. What the West Marches were kind of built off of is my understanding.
Cool beans. Alright. That means we are done with our shout out. We're done with our announcements. Now it's time to grab your preferred beverage, curl up around the hearth, and join us as we discuss the Apocalypse Fantastica.
Cool.
Muy drug.
Makes me happy every time, Skrat.
It's the only thing that his little squirrel liver can handle.
That little squirrel can handle an entire pint?
Yeah.
Seriously, man.
No, it's that size. That's the actual size.
I love it.
All right. So let's do like we usually do and start off with some definitions and some examples for people to get their Fantastica stuff. So the actual Apocalypse Fantastica is just the name we're using for a more magical or supernatural style apocalypse. And I want you guys to kind of think about this and give your feedback on it, because Me says that supernatural apocalypses, which would include magical or other types of things, can include the idea of a magical pathogen, or a magical zombie apocalypse, or a magical type of what would we say also? A magical type of impact event, like technically like what you see in Final Fantasy VII is a magical / technical type of impact event, with Genova being the asteroid being called down to the planet to destroy it by Sephiroth type of thing, and merging with it and stuff like that. So he's using supernatural means to do that. So that's something to think about, that supernatural can be the influence, not just in and of itself, but also a influence behind other types of apocalypses. For some different reference points you can use in fiction, there's the Norse Ragnarok myth is actually, it's like a pre-myth to what because of the different ways that it was written down and collated, it kind of merges a Christian myth at the end, like that Adam and Eve myth, with a kind of this is Norse myth before that type of situation. So it's kind of fuzzy there for like keeping track of things. But if you use it as inspiration, that might work. Because it's very, very much a magical apocalypse. There's also the Dark Sun setting, which has a very interesting twist on magic and the magic apocalypse of a setting. And then there's Dying Earth by Jack Vance. It's overlooked too much by our current set of TTRPG players, considering Vancian magic is a term that gets thrown around a lot but not well understood. So, that's where it comes from Jack Vance and his Dying Earth. It's called the Dying Earth Trilogy, but there's more stories within it, I think. So, check that out too. So that's what I'm putting forward. I've got my final thought reserved for the back, but That's what I'm putting forward.
Okay. Random history thing. That's actually a common issue we have with looking through Norse myths, is that a lot of them have been Christianized, and part of scholarship on that is trying to separate the original myths from the Christian influence. On the note of magic apocalypses, if we're talking about the style of apocalypse that could have occurred non-magically, I think the important difference is that the players are probably going to fight it with magic. So it's, in a sense, the source. And it actually, as we were talking about in the non-magical sense, all of the ways we were discussing the players trying to defeat it were non-magical, so it kind of makes sense that in parallel, if the source is magic, not necessarily are you going to have to use magic for all of the different sources of it, but it's at least on the table now, where it wasn't before.
No, that's a great point as a potential pitfall or boon to what you're doing.
You suddenly have this new solution that you didn't before in previous scenarios.
Right.
And consequences that are more than just simply, I made a gun and it has some limited range. There's some elements of unknown to what the effects or consequences could be. If you're fighting magic with magic and part of that is the mystery of the unknown, where did this come from, what can it do? It's a little more unsettling.
That's a shout out to Adam's final thought last time with the tech priest not knowing.
But there's also spiritual based apocalypse where there might not be anything that the players can do, especially if you're looking for like a Judgment Day kind of scenario and your campaign has like deities that are at war or something of that nature. Or if you have something that, you know, takes some kind of a personal appeal and there isn't quite a fight to be had.
Well, see, that brings up an interesting scenario. What if the apocalypse is that this world has become, for some reason, the battleground of these two deities, and it's winner take all, and it doesn't matter if the world is destroyed to them, because they've got planes of existence they can go to, much less a single world within a plane. So your players can either, maybe they align with one side or the other, or maybe they're just interested in escaping. Because I think that's something that...
solid choice, that's what...
I think Dennis brought up last time that the players feel... The players feel weaker in the modern Megiddo, in the modern type of more grounded type of setting. But you can also make them feel that way in a fantasy setting, or vice versa in a non-fantasy setting, by having them be, instead of everyday people in a modern setting, they're scientists and leaders and stuff like that, and you're playing it out in a larger scope. Not scale, but scope of the game.
It really changes a lot when it's now suddenly the character's job to stop the apocalypse instead of you get to do what you want. You can try to fight with us, you can run away, you can cower and just take it. But when it is expected and you have the power to stop it, it changes. That option is taken away.
Get in the Eva Shinji.
You don't get a choice.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. If you can, you should, kind of thing. Until, it's get in the robot Shinji, then don't get in the robot Shinji, and then get in the robot Shinji.
And then
I think we talked about this in our
congratulations.
mech thing, right? Yes, okay. I was going to say shout out to our mech around the hearth, too.
Yeah.
And the robot Shinji.
But that concept there means that even in a fantasy setting, you can take it like these deities. You can't compete with deities. Okay, you even the statted up deities that are in the books, because I have the 3.5 one. Those are aspects of those deities. Those aren't those actual deities. Those are aspects of those deities, like an incarnation of those deities. And it takes a whole party of really buff adventurers to just take down an incarnation of one. Not the actual deity itself, just an incarnation. So you're not going to be doing anything about these dudes. They're fighting over this world in our hypothetical situation here. You choose to align with one of them, you choose to align with none of them, but if you choose to align with none of them, you're not going to be worried about saving the world, because you can't. In this hypothetical, maybe, especially this works really well if you have like a rare magic type of setting. They heard about this wizard who's in his tower and he's off by himself. No one else ever goes to him. But your characters get wind. There's rumors about his power and his magic, and they've heard before in their stories about magical people who can transport across planes. And now they're just trying to book it to the wizard. So maybe, on the off chance they can get off of this doomed planet before the warring deities destroy it. And it's even better if the warring deities are something like Gorham, who's chaotic neutral, and who would he be fighting? Anybody. He'd be fighting anybody. Because Gorham don't care. He just likes the fat. He just likes the fight. So maybe he's just fighting one of the demon lords for fun. Because he does that type of thing.
A solid choice, yeah.
So both of them are not particularly on your side about living or dying, because Gorham's just like, no, die in battle with me and you'll go to my plane and we'll be able to fight forever in eternity. So that's his reward for his followers, and they kind of enjoy it because that's what they get off on, but,
And it really changes if you like putting themes and specific vibes into your game. You could certainly go with your apocalypse. The end of everything you know is just collateral damage.
Yeah.
You mean you could have a setting where it's like, hey, why don't we just want to cause the apocalypse? This is we have to stop it. What if it's your campaign is just we want to be the ones that bring it about? That could be pretty incredible. I've just hit my head. Sorry.
Play the bad guys sometime?
Oh,
Or
right.
are
That
you?
guess, yeah.
Now
the bad guys.
play the bad guys. Yeah, but I was also thinking, could it be the good guys that bring it? Like, it's time for it to end. I mean,
Ooh, it's like a
with
righteous
great
mission.
flood,
Like it's
yeah.
been conferred upon us to bring this end to the world. It is the just thing because of the deities have decreed. You wrestle with that idea.
Right. I know, because then it goes cosmic versus personal, too. Like,
As far as
obviously,
the alignment, yeah.
the view, or even simpler, the view of it, right? Because
Mhm.
even in an evil campaign, I think generally speaking, from the character's perspective, they're doing... I don't know if the right thing is the right vernacular there, but
Yeah.
the thing that is supposed to be done
Yeah.
might be right.
Duty,
Right.
or the
What is
honor and
expected of
privilege.
them.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I never meant to be the one to destroy the world, but I never thought I would be anyone. But I have the opportunity. I might as well take it.
Right.
Doing something with my life.
Doing
no one's
something.
going to be around to question my life choices anyway, so...
Well, that does bring about the idea of playing a character who's like, I'm not doing anything else with my life, and this just falls into my lap. I'm supposed to do this. This is my purpose now, because it's fallen into my lap to do this thing. No one else...
I'm bored. Let's end the world.
Well, it's not even so much I'm bored. You can do a deeper kind of more tortured idea of I had no other purpose. The world literally was passing me by. I was nothing in the gutter, and this power came, and I suddenly was worth something.
Mm-hmm.
That actually segues to something I've been thinking you guys are talking about is like Shadow of Colossus style, where I have no other choice. I have to do this and kill these great beings, which is going to cause the end of the world. So it'd be a flip of what Adam you were posing of with these deities. There's nothing you can do in playing with magic settings. There could be deities where eventually you could be a mortal, could potentially become a deity or something, or kill a deity. Maybe a deity is dying. There's a lot of ways you could play with that where the world is going to end because this deity is coming to an end. Or, like Shadow of Colossus, I have this goal that is very personal, and I will, knowingly or otherwise, sacrifice the entire world to accomplish it.
I certainly didn't know what I was doing when I killed the Colossuses when I played.
yes, right?
Well, all that Wanderer really knew, as far as we understand, was that his love died while she was carrying their child, and he wanted them back, and this was the only way to do it.
Yeah,
and at least story-wise, that's all we kind of get.
Right.
But,
I was gonna say, I thought he kind of got tricked into that. Like, whatever voice was talking to you was like, "Hey, yeah, do this. It'll totally work, my dude."
Well, I mean, it did work. Technically,
Yeah.
whatever Orot, or whatever the being's name was of darkness, kept his word. He brought her back, but he got his body in return, basically, as a vessel type of situation. In which case, the deal was struck. The die was cast.
Now this might be anecdotal to me and my biases. I love the deity stuff because of that idea of playing with the predestination versus free will. And just playing with that. Never making a firm decision on it, but I really enjoy that aspect, which with apocalypse-esque stuff, you're getting into that. Did we have any choice? It is something I think we harken back to of talking with your players about it, because they could feel a loss of agency if you don't do it well. But,
and it can be a struggle if they don't have the right mindset for it, and just how do you want to feel the agency, because the player wants agency. Right. The character doesn't necessarily need to have it, but as long as the player does. And so I guess this one campaign I'm playing in called Bomb Squad, it's really great. You should check it out. I am playing a character who is in a world that is somewhat post-apocalyptic. They've heard stories about how close things came to the end and how drastically things were, and how there's these lingering, positions of power that have to keep things in order, the Abaddons and such like that. And we know there are deities out there and such that are, threatening and at threat. I'm playing a gnome ninja teenage girl that does not have any real agency or connection to those higher powers. She's got a friend who is like the offspring of a couple of deities, and the newest member of an ancient resurrecting line, and someone else who can step into death. and that whole realm and talk to, deities that have a position, a role in life. And like, my character has no connection to that. Can't see those things, can't touch those things, can't interfere with those things, but feels no loss of agency because she has a mission that she can see here and now, and it serves her, it serves her family, it serves her friends, and being with the party of people and protecting them so they can do their thing with it is a world of agency when, in the end, they can't really do anything to touch that. And it was fun playing with Tiri, who was in the same spot. All I can do is hit things with a hammer. But was put in a position where a deity took interest, and she's like, I'm not doing that thing until there was no other choice. And then she takes that to get a handle on that agency to make an impact beyond just what you can hit with a hammer. And that changes her. And it was a change to the character as a result of it. So I loved having my agency for both characters, one that could grasp at the deific, and one who can't but doesn't need to. And I think that playing through both of those with this impending apocalypse is great, great fun. You just have to look for where that agency is.
Players don't need free will. That's just asking for trouble.
Says the writer. I love you.
Well, you see a lot of magical apocalypses talked about in your games and settings and stuff that you can draw on to start to flavor your own, if you even need that. I know that with mine, my universe is kind of post-apocalyptic in the sense that it is a universe existed before. And it's the universe I played Pathfinder in with my friends and stuff like that. That universe existed before. That homebrew universe existed before, but it no longer exists. What does exist is are things from it that were saved inside of another being and now trickle out as part of the making of the new universe. And so, like in Atar, so spoilers for Atar and Adventure Academia, some little things. Atar looks like this island nation, and this island that is basically a blown out caldera. And there's civilization all in the middle, and there's a whole bunch of lore and stuff like that. But that's all on the surface. If you go below the surface of Atar, the dwarves have found the stone folk and jewel bones, which are the dwarves and gnomes respectively, have found strange architecture down in the deeper layer, where there's what we would call concrete and glass from a skyscraper mixed and smashed together with column from who knows how old. And then these different things are all squished and smashed together in this deep layer system of this part of this world. I can't give too many spoilers, but you can do those type of things in your games, and especially if you're doing just a complete homebrew, it's really easy to just take things you like and find interesting and stick them in your games, and sometimes you don't have to have an explanation for it. The players give you one. So, enjoying that.
Another recurring theme through these chats for sure is players can come up with better ideas than you if you just give them a chance to.
Dude, it's a mythic thing, a mythic level thing I love about TTRPGs is that it takes multiple people to make something that you couldn't make on your own, like a child.
Collaborative
It takes the two. Yep, collaborative, 100%. It's just mythic level with that. I was kind of interested because what we've been talking about is both a boon and a pitfall with the agency thing. Maybe Skrat from a more broadly storytelling perspective. What are your thoughts on still feeling agency or being able to give agency to the characters in the story when you have this overarching plot you're going for? And then I don't know, maybe Dennis too, from a specifically TTRPG, as you've been experimenting with sagas.
So when I do my campaigns, like, I didn't even know who the BBBG was for the first several sessions. I just kind of had an idea, like, hey, here's totally what we're doing. And then they're making things up as they go. I mean, like, I have, like, okay, here's, an objective we're going to go do, but I don't know how all this is going to unfold. And then it's how the decisions they're making, it's part of what the decisions they make during the game, and then it's the comments they make out of the game and the group chat. Right. And it's like, okay, let me take that. And then that way, see, when you're writing a book, a lot of times I will start with the end scene. It's like, okay, here's this really cool end scene I have an idea of. And then I go write the entire story trying to make that end scene really cool and have impact. Like, now I gotta make you feel it. Well, you can't really do that in the TTRPG. You can't have that end scene in mind, or else you'll railroad everybody the entire way. So, I just kind of have a very loose idea. It's like, this may or may not be cool, and then let them unknowingly develop it along the way. Like, they don't. Well, they probably know by now at this point, but since I've done it to them a few times. If I got some new players, they wouldn't know what was going on. I don't know if that actually answers the question or not, but
no, I mean, that vibes too with what we're talking about, the collaborative storytelling.
It gives the players more agency, even though the characters don't necessarily,
right?
It's definitely a tough thing to do, like, from a GM perspective, splitting them apart when you can give the players a choice, but the characters really don't have one. I still haven't really figured out how to do it well. So I kind of just avoid the sort of situation where the characters don't have a choice, if I can. Sometimes I'll go all in and say, no, there is no choice here. Like, there's a tidal wave coming towards you. There's no way around it. It's going to overlap you. This thing is going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Sometimes I will just tell the players that, just so they don't try to figure their way around it. I found that's been useful because, they're used to trying to solve problems. Like, they're here to do exactly that. They're trying to figure out creative ways to get out of a jam. If you tell them that this jam is... So you're supposed to be jammed right now, so be jammed. There's not a way out of this, and do it in, like, a creative and narrative fashion. That will work. Just get that message to the players that you don't have agency right now, and make it clear. I would suggest not doing it often. Like, make them as few and far between as you can, but it is still a tool that can be used.
And being honest with those expectations is sometimes just very, very helpful. If it's and even if it's because you as a game master are kind of stuck, it's okay to be vulnerable on occasion and just be like, I really don't have a plan forward for this, so I think the best thing for the story is let's kind of go this way, and just let them know, like, yeah, it's not every session is like this, but for this session, this is what I've got prepped. This is what I can do today. And that is a fine way to take away a piece of that agency while mitigating the expectations, especially if you have good rapport with them and you know, hey, it's going to be an open sandboxy world the next session, but I was really thinking it was going to go this way. This is what I have prepped is a fair thing. or even just say, I am choosing narratively to take away agency for this because we have a unique opportunity with the story, the characters that are together, and this thing that happened. And this actually speaks to something that happened in the very, very end of the very last session I just did with the Star Wars campaign. And it brings up a microcosm of an apocalypse, which is the TPK scenario, which is everybody dies, it's the end of the world, right? That is
their world.
Effectively, yes, the end of the world. If
Our shared
dies.
dream state, right, in a sense?
Yes. The scenario was that our party of people on a little space transport in the Star Wars universe got hit by a capital ship's turbo laser. They rolled a nat 20 and did 600 hit points of damage beyond the threshold that would cause the ship to blow up.
Yeah.
And so, at that point, I took, the opportunity to make some decisions like in game for how this is going to be, because this is a unique scenario. I'm not going to kill them, but I need to have some kind of consequence and a unique narrative scenario here to make this engaging so they can live through an apocalypse, because, it's better than all dying. And I talked to the players about, what do you envision for this? What do you want to have your characters do? Some of them had a very clear vision. Oh, I've been waiting for my character to engage this. I've got this unique way to save the ship. And other people are like, I want to just save this one person. And between that, it built out this whole scenario where the characters do not have agency. There is really only one thing they can try to do. All the players had full agency in describing how they wanted to see this scenario play through and how exciting it could make it. It was amazing. And I didn't have to, decide, do I want to say, yep, let's preserve the reality of the system and have total destruction here? Or just Patsy, let's not make it that bad. It was, no, where do you want to go with this? Put the expectations on the table. I'm going to build that scenario, and it's going to be amazing. But also, just to throw that out there, what do you think about TPK as a apocalypse?
Well, that goes back to it being the end of the world as you know it. It depends if there's an afterlife, too. So, I did this video a long time ago. Maybe I'll release it for the archives at some point. I still have a copy of it. Death is only the beginning. Death is only the beginning. And it basically was about the idea that, that when your characters die, that doesn't mean that the adventure's over. It just means, because there's an afterlife in most settings, it means that they may be stuck in hell or on the shores of the river Styx, at least,
Sorry, I'm thinking of, what was that show? I wish Moustache was here. Last time he was up, he made us watch it for movie night with our patrons, where you're playing a soul that's that. What is it?
R.I.P.D. or something like that.
R.I.P.D. Yes. Death is not the end.
Yeah. So, that's
good.
not the end. Maybe you guys, depending on your setting, maybe they do have to work out some penance. Okay, you did this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. All right, we're going to have to work this out. So, okay, I mean, we can't be letting you into the afterlife with all these other people who've been really good, and then you did all this stuff. I'm telling you now, we're going to have to mitigate some of this. And so, there's lots of fun ways to play around with that as far as it being the end of a game. As far as it being an apocalypse, it's like everybody's end of days is the end of their days. Your death is the end of your days in the sense of life. It's not really that different for your characters, just because we know it's different as the players. Because as the players, we know there's an afterlife. The characters know there's an afterlife in some form or sense because they see the deities actively involved in the universe. But in that same token, you're not completely safe over there in that universe. Because the deities fight with each other. there's incursions between those different deities into each other's realms. Hell, the daemons do that a lot. So
this man is putting our characters in Bomb Squad through an apocalypse that is taking place in our afterlife. Oh my gosh!
I didn't. What?
That's horrifying.
It's fun.
I don't know. Nahazik thinks it's a
know.
rather delicious idea.
Your tormentor is gone. We destroyed you. So stop.
He's not gone.
Right?
He's just
trapped.
imprisoned. There's a difference.
Ultimate cosmic power.
In space.
Oh, it's so good.
What else we got? I was trying to think about more pitfalls too. Maybe it's back. Oh, go ahead. Who was it? Dennis?
Yeah, I got a... So in my... I feel like this is the case with a lot of dungeon masters, people who run any D&D, if they'll make their homebrew world, which needs to have a history of some sort. And what I put together for mine is... I don't like it anymore, but I have yet to change it. But the story goes, the histories that are quote unquote known, is that there are 3 eras, and I was trying to figure out my starting point was, okay, we are in the 3rd era. Okay, why is this the 3rd era? What happens to separate the calendar like that? And my answer was apocalyptic wars, both times. So I have the first one, this creation story is the beginning of the 1st era. And then the end of the 1st era, beginning of the 2nd, is a war between the gods over whether or not humans should use magic or humanoids should use magic. And then the gods, at the end of that, the gods separated themselves for the 2nd era. But, the world was destroyed basically in the process, and the little people had to come pick up the pieces and build society again, without gods this time to help. And then the other one was a war between dragons and giants that lasted for 1,000 years and enveloped the whole place in destruction constantly. It wasn't, but it was like a slow and constant apocalypse, and that's something I don't think we've touched on yet, is how long does the apocalypse take? We've talked about like a slow burn apocalypse, but what if it is sort of like the new normal is just this constant war, or like maybe only half the population became zombies, and we're still trying to, like, there are still zombies out there, but society is hanging on by a thread.
Well, that's where you get Warhammer 40k, right? This is it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But yeah, I think the point where I was going with this originally is putting apocalypses in your own world's history, just as part of world building, to figure out, where did these ruins come from? What killed this civilization? These are all beats we've already hit on in previous segments of this Apocalypse series, but I think they are important enough to be mentioned again.
Mm-hmm.
And they are somewhat different with magic to be considered. So if you have magic in your settings, these, again, like we touched on at the start of this chat, that can definitely flavor the way that magic behaves. One of the games I ran, there's this hugely advanced society. They lived in this area, that was that the players had traveled back in time to. And it was basically like magic HIV is kind of what it was. Like if you were touched and used magic in the way that they used magic, because they did it a specific way, you got sick eventually. But they didn't care because they were a decadent society. They were just in it for the lulz or whatever, you know? They're enjoying their decadence. They saw no problem with it. And those that caught it, well, so what? Let them die type of thing. They didn't care much about that. And so there's that way to do a slow roll where everything that this touches is going to be involved in that. I think there's also to weave in that, one of our examples does it really good that we talked about, Dark Sun. Magic literally consumes the vitality of the planet around you. That's the whole thing with Dark Sun. That's why magic users are hated. You do not use magic in Dark Sun. If you do, people hate you. You are ostracized. There is only one Sorcerer King, and he's probably got some reserved magic to be able to transport off that rock when everything is eventually dead. He is, that's what magic is there. And why you don't usually see any magic users when you're playing it. And something similar in yours could be that way.
Why that was.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what the Dark Sun setting was initially. And one of the earliest things I did on my channel was the oldest D&D book I own is Dark Sun Monsters Compendium Appendix 2. And so I had a ton of fun just going through that like wildly obscure and old book from 2nd edition, and going through and looking at the monsters and porting them over to 5th edition. And I kept going through and I'm like, why is there no magic in here? It's all psionics. And now I understand why.
Yeah. Because there were many magic users. Then they learned about that being a problem. But there's only one dragon on that whole planet. It is the Sorcerer King. He turned himself into a dragon to gain, dragons are powerful. He wants to be powerful. He turns himself into power. But that consumes so much magic to do. It consumes so much vita, so much vital energy. And there are very few places now that have vital energy anymore. It literally consumes it to use magic. So you can do something similar with your games.
I think it's important then to think about how the mechanics of the apocalypse affects the mechanics of the gameplay, which unless you're building a system where those pair, or choosing what system to use to tell the story that you're looking at, like you might have to be creative about how to connect those things. But yeah, if there's magic was the cause, what is the threat to using magic? If disease is the cause, then what's the threat to using modern medicine? Like, you gotta have some connections between those. And it reminded me, when you're telling that, of a little experimental thing I did. It was a post-apocalyptic setting that I ran, and it was a role-playing game, but there was no system, there were no dice. It was just storytelling, essentially. But I did it as an experiment based on art from, I think their name is Alexia Samarin, and they did the Romantically Apocalyptic webcomic. And what I did for the game was I picked a picture from some of their artwork and just simply said, this is the setting for today's adventure. Anything you see, everything is exactly as it is. And to just simply take a different picture each day or each session to have the characters explore, interact with, get things and collect things from, I realized I would need some kind of a explanation for this strange storytelling style. Why is it that there's no transition from the previous picture to the new one? So the mechanic I came up with, and what turned into the explanation for the worlds Apocalypse is the degradation of memory. Nobody can remember anything from a year ago. This was the premise, and basically the only rule to the story that I had, the only piece to the storytelling system, is you do not remember the past. Everybody's memory is magically, spiritually, somehow psionically degraded, and it led to the destruction of all of society. Nobody knows what's in the world, and the players weren't allowed to look up any of the pictures. It was simply going to be, sometime after last session, you are here, and you can remember a few basic things about your purpose in life and why you're traveling, nothing else. And it made for a great setting, exploration of the world, very little exploration of the self, because that was so transient, moment to moment, and also person to person who was there. And it tied the reason for the apocalypse to the one core mechanic that this non-system had. I think it made for a very engaging thing and unique to it, because without that system, that setting, I don't know how I would reuse those things.
Well, now you have yourself an interesting challenge.
I just got to try it out in Sagas.
Yeah.
Yay!
You mentioned making sure that, like, the opportunity of having an apocalypse change the rules of the game. And I would take that one step further and say the apocalypse changes the rules of the game, and how does that change in game rules affect the world? One thing that I've been considering in my homebrew setting, there's a continent that was on this RNG map, and I haven't built anything on it yet. It's just sitting there. It's empty. It just has like some like geographic terraforming stuff, like mountains and lakes and rivers and whatever. And I'm considering saying something terrible happened there, and when you are in that region across this whole continent, you cannot cast spells above 3rd level. They just don't work. Why? And now, about this, you mentioned rule changing, and I'm starting to think, oh, there could have been an apocalyptic event over there that turned off magic of a higher level. And how would that change how the society develops? And the world builder in me desperately wants to start building that.
That sounds very
so cool.
That sounds a lot like a similar thing with that Van Gogh, was it? He did. He's on the Open Legend Discord. He did something where he had a land where the people of that land were immortal, but only while they were in the bounds of their land. Because the deities were very localized. The spiritual effects were very localized. So that's a way to do that too. So like having an apocalyptic event or having something very localized happen to that one area, or maybe that's where the apocalypse is coming from. That type of thing.
It's spreading.
It's spreading.
As a fun little fact about that setting, the deities are in the stars. And the stars over a specific region determines how magic works in that section of the world.
So maybe something happened to the stars.
Yep.
There are no stars above this area, or there are so few stars above it. They just sort of blacked out.
Well, and it's specific constellations that the deities are in. Like, constellations in the sky are actually
beings. Representatives.
Yes.
So maybe like the parallel to Constellation Orion got abandoned. Nobody's living there, and now that was over this continent, and magic doesn't work as well because there's a vacancy. That's very exciting. Who's going to get there first? Can the players influence it? Can the players get there?
Power vacuum. I love playing with the power vacuum.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, because then your players want the power. So it's just like, all right. All right. we've talked quite a bit about this particular subject. Let's go ahead and do final thoughts before I lose these guys. It's past midnight where some of them are. So
A little bit. Just a teeny bit.
What I haven't noticed, I have lots more to say.
yeah. All right. Well, let me see. Let's do. We'll do. Okay, and then Levi, and then Skrat, and then Avenue, and then me.
Sounds good.
All right.
So, final thoughts on fantasy magical apocalypses. They are a lot more malleable, which is really cool. I feel like there's a lot more opportunity about you to invent what the actual apocalypse might be. And it might just be me personally, but I feel like the world building would be easier when you're starting with something that doesn't have like a rigid structure. So you're not starting with Earth. You can't get stuff wrong if it's your homebrew world, which is something I really enjoy. It's kind of why I usually don't like if I need to set a game in a modern city, I set it in Kansas City, Minnesota. It's just a city that doesn't exist, but it's somewhere in Minnesota, and I know Minnesota quite well because I was born and raised here, so I can get like the weather patterns down. I don't need to know anything geographically or like location wise. So I like being able to avoid the risk of players calling you out for getting something wrong, or even worse, the players assuming that this is the way it was and you assumed something different, and then there's that disconnect that can cause like a need for a retcon or something. So with a fantasy apocalypse, there is very little risk for that.
Okey-dokey. All right, Levi.
I guess I would mostly say that a fantasy apocalypse is a great excuse to get weird with it because there are no true limits. I like playing silly and strange games. I had a decently good long-running magical lawn ornament game.
Yep.
That was a good one, man.
Just, it sounds odd, but I think part of it is that once people get over the weirdness, everyone kind of internalizes the rules of it and starts taking it serious back again. Please have fun with it. It'll give people an experience they haven't had.
True. Do your cloudy with a chance of meatballs with a fantasy twist. There you go.
I mean, honestly,
Like, specifically, but elves.
Elves.
Some
It's the
god
elves'
of
fault.
food got mad.
Oh, the elven god of the cornucopia or something like that?
Yeah.
He's having a temper tantrum and just shaking it out.
Call me salty one more time.
All right.
Love that.
Cool beans. What you got, Skrat?
So, there is a story that I've been wanting to write for a long time now, and y'all got really, really close to it. I think I've talked about the universe I've made before, where it's they have all the power of the gods trapped into crystals and whatnot, and that's how their technology grows and advances. So this one takes place way into their future. So like the technology's all well established and all this good stuff. But due to events that happened in another story, the world is losing all its magic. So every mythical creature I've come up with, they're going extinct. All their devices they have conjured up and created, they're starting to malfunction and stop working. People that once had magic are losing it. Like, it's all just getting sapped away. So lots of failing mechanics and whatnot. And really, that's me ending my entire universe that I've made and writing no more. But I feel like it'd be an alright tabletop setting. You would have almost like you'd have to throw in a mechanic to make sure any magical thing you tried to do would work, or if you were using a piece of equipment that was infused with that stuff. But that might get tiring. I don't know what they could try and come up with more solid solutions. Just go back to good old-fashioned swords and bows and arrows with a slight sprinkling of magic-infused technology here and there. So your really coveted items would be a working piece of something.
Somebody really wants a toaster.
Magical toaster.
Yeah, I mean...
Brave little toaster.
A brave little toaster. Yeah. All right.
Oh man, it is past midnight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're definitely not products of the 80s and 90s here.
All right.
Howl's Moving Castle use a demon as a toaster.
Use a TV as a toaster. It's always a solid choice.
That won't turn out bad.
No.
All right, Avenue.
For us, yeah. Well, for me, I'm going to use this opportunity actually to shout out a system and a friend of ours at Indie, which is It's Never Dark Enough, Shattered, the Grimdark RPG. We played a couple sessions with Josh, who is the head spear of that, and it's set in a post-apocalyptic magic setting where people tried to do a ritual, didn't go well, caused the apocalypse, and now we're living in the aftermath of that. I love their artwork. I love the world setting. It's a crunchier system. Check it out. Shattered, a Grimdark RPG by Indie, INDE. And check it out on our channel. Josh, we got to have him back in studio sometime to play with us. But so great. It was really fun. I love the setting. So if you're interested in a fantasy post-apocalyptic setting, Grimdark is built around that.
Check out the live play.
Yes. It was a lot of fun. And in the second session, our hair got crazy. So I'll leave it at that. Literally, IRL hair.
Oh, okay. I was
yeah.
thinking it as like a monster that tried to like possess your hair and tried to kill you.
I won't say no.
I mean, there are hair witches, so...
Yes, and...
Yeah, there it is. But yeah, check that out. It fits right in with everything we're talking about.
I guess my final thought is on talking about spiritual apocalypses as an option. Don't forget the spiritual aspect of the apocalypse, whatever the nature of it is, whether it is actually something that is of the mundane or something of the magical or of the spiritual itself. And I was thinking back to my comments about tie the themes of your story with the themes of the apocalypse, but don't forget that there might also be deeper meanings and things that you might speak to even just our own reality of it, if you want to take it that far. But in the Star Wars setting, I talked about how the players have encountered many instances of apocalypses on other worlds. All of them have had a theme of, war and destruction will make corpses of us all, and the destruction that's come from that. They're already thinking about the death and destruction that this is going to eventually bring to their own home world. It's that thing that's thematically clued them in that we are going to go through an apocalypse. And then, again, if you're a player, stop listening now. But one of the other themes that we've also had is we've seen regrowth through apocalypses. And there's a strong sense of perhaps the spiritual purpose of this is that there is life or growth or possibilities that don't otherwise come about. And actually, you were a part of making that theme happen when you remember just our little microcosm of the Droach nest being destroyed, and the resulting of that was this burgeoning forest and the spreading of life, being a metaphor for your worlds, your Vakota's world being destroyed, and the almost threat of burgeoning life coming back from that. And this is something that's also going to play out through other places in the story where we've seen apocalypses, maybe it's a hint to the players that a little destruction coming to their world, if they could trust these spiritual forces, trust the force itself, maybe there is life and good that can come from it if it was allowed or cultivated or governed in some way. I don't have to say whether there is or isn't, but it's a theme that could be built on if a character or people wanted to explore it.
It just makes me think of one of my favorite 5th edition characters is the Cleric of the Grave. Too much life is bad, too much death is bad. It's the balance.
Yeah.
Very much influenced Vokodo. But yeah,
I like that. Vokodo and his story influenced the whole story. Especially Kyle.
Alright. I guess we're to me then. I'm going to take it with a twist to the dark side of the Apocalypse Fantastica. Picture it, if you will. An apocalypse based around the concept of the tulpa. An apocalypse that takes the form of whatever you believe and fear the most. An apocalypse whose form changes to be your personal and own individual undoing. That magical force sweeping over a land and leaving every sentient being gone. Gone by their own worst fears, their own thoughts of what would be the worst thing to end them. Welcome to the Tulpocalypse. That's what I have.
So half the population died because they lived through the experience of running to school in their underwear.
Yeah.
Sure. The shame killed them. More like
that's rough, Adam.
I would think about more like this tulpa work. This tulpa apocalypse would work. Your greatest fear is drowning. Your mouth starts to water. You're laying in bed. You're dry. Your mouth starts to water and water and water until you can't pour it out anymore. You can't spit it out fast enough. And it's coming from inside. And yeah. How would you fight something like that? How would you prevent something like that? How would you do that?
I don't know. How do you sleep at night?
How do I sleep at night? Pretty good.
Adam sleeps fine.
Pretty good.
Quite well, thank you.
Yeah. My players, I can't say. Dan still looks up at the night sky and sees eyes. I don't know what to do about him.
1,000 of them. Oh, that was good, dude.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That was my final thought. If you take it and use it, do let me know how it goes. I don't have anything else to add, so I guess that means that we've come to the end of ApocTober. Hopefully you have enjoyed and had fun and had some interesting thoughts and interesting ideas come. But until next time, as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
I thought you were slowing us down, Levi. You were bringing us to close. What are you doing?
I know, I'm sorry. I was meaning to.
Teasing you. Thank you, guys. This was really fun. Thanks for putting this together, Adam.
This was great. I love talking about this shit, especially in a professional context. That's my favorite part about being a content creator.
There you go.
Thank you for considering us professional.
With that audio quality, of course you're a professional, man.
You're very kind.
That's probably what sets apart the pros from the cons. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the audio quality.
It's the. I mean, that's.
That
very
explains
true.
a lot from a channel.
No, you're the best.
Oh no, yours is alright.
Audio is the content creator's greatest enemy and best friend.
Audio first.
It was one of the steepest slopes to climb.
Oh my gosh. Still doing it. Still climbing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will find the top of that mountain, I promise. I'm not going to.
Yes, you will.
And then your
It's called
tulpa
Hollywood.
comes.
Yeah. And then my tulpa comes. And then I die. At least I know I made it to the top, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then discovered you're
Or
afraid
is-
of heights.
It's pretty good.
Oh, afraid of perfection.
All right.
That's good.
Good night, everybody. This was a blast. I'll do my best to try to hang out in the Discord a little more often. But this was
Awesome.
fun. This was a lot of fun.
Oh,
Cool beans.
Right back at you.
All right. Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Night, everybody.
Yeah,
Good night.
I'm out too. See ya.
Night,
Farewell,
Scrat.
Skrat. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go sleep so I can actually take care of children.
Okay.
yep.